and that concerns geopolitics that is making cybersecurity challenges more complex, as per a World Economic Forum report. It says that these challenges have become more profound and more complex due to these geopolitical tensions. The report by the World Economic Forum talks about that. It says the report titled Global Cybersecurity Outlook 2025, that was published yesterday, says that cybersecurity is entering an era of unprecedented complexity as geopolitical tensions are intensifying, new technologies emerge at breakneck speed, and threats are becoming more sophisticated. The report talks about nearly 60% of organizations that have stated that geopolitical tensions have affected their cybersecurity strategy. The geopolitical turmoil has also affected the perception of risks, with 1 in 3 CEOs citing cyber espionage and loss of sensitive information or intellectual property theft as their top concern. Also, around 45% cyber leaders have expressed concerns about the disruption of operations and business processes. It's a very complicated situation as far as cyber security is concerned, and the geopolitical situation is only adding to the misery of all of that. To highlight that and to talk more about that, we've been joined by two guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. In the studios, we've been joined by Dr. Usman Chohan. He's an advisor on economy at CAS, and of course regular, and also talks about security, whether it be cyber security or economic security. So thank you very much to have joined us. And online, we've been joined by Saad Masood. He is a senior telco expert. Thank you very much, Saad, to have joined us as well. Let's begin with you, Usman. Usman, global cyber security challenges. We have heard about that many a times. We've seen how cyber security challenges have, put huge organizations under major dilemmas, and we've seen that in the recent past as well. Is the situation as dire as proclaimed when they say that geopolitical tensions are intensifying, new technologies emerge at breakneck speed, threats become more sophisticated, and it makes the whole situation more and more complex?
Yes, certainly. First of all, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure. The cybersecurity element vis-a-vis geopolitics is very severe because it just adds one other dimension to the motives that you can have to attack the cyber infrastructure. You will always have nefarious actors who try to gain either information which is valuable in data, or they may try to extract some other form of value from you. But when it is geopolitically motivated, then the desire for sabotage increases manifold, because then you may not gain something, you just want to make sure your adversary loses. And that adversarial angle, where you simply want them to lose even if you don't directly gain, is enough to have a geopolitical element of extreme animosity. So that's what I consider important. Our geopolitical situation right now is characterized by multipolarity, yes, but it's also characterized by two large powers with advanced cybersecurity capabilities. But that they may be sophisticated on the attack side. On the defense side, they're both vulnerable, and so it's easier to just simply strike first and ask questions later, which means that overall, when you are trying to defend against things, trying to protect your civilian population, their data, their infrastructure, everything, from cyber attacks, you're a lot more vulnerable than you might realize.
All right, that's very interesting to note. Saad, coming to you, the report talks about nearly 60% of organizations that say that geopolitical tensions have affected their cybersecurity strategy. Now, 1 in 3 CEOs says cyber espionage, loss of sensitive information, intellectual property, and is their top concern. And 45% cyber leaders express concern about the disruption of operations and business processes. What's your take as far as this is concerned?
Thanks, Omer. Firstly, thank you for having me on your show, giving me the opportunity to speak on this particular topic as well. I think based on the reports as well and the experience that I have gained over the years, especially operating in an industry such as this, to be honest, it is a valid concern. Considering that lately the arena for cyber attacks has actually enlarged beyond original capability. You would have seen that at the moment, purportedly, there are state-sponsored cyber attacks that also tend to happen because of geopolitical tensions. Russia, North Korea come to mind, and similar other nations as well. But more importantly for me, Omer, is that the weaponizing of information that has an impact on not only global polities, but also global infrastructure as well. And one example of such weaponizing of information is the uh, electoral interference that is normally quoted and happening routinely over the world as well. It was mentioned in the former US elections as well as in the Brexit negotiations as well here in the UK. And I think this will certainly keep on growing because of the advancement in technology, more and more artificial intelligence pieces entering into the fray as well. And consequently, lately, cyber attacks are being taken as part of hybrid warfare as well. So, for example, or across the globe, the definition of conventional warfare is shifting and being inclusive now of cyber attacks as well, because that is a strategy that governments, organizations, etc., are actually using in order to defeat whatever they deem as their enemy. And lastly, I think the impact of all of this on social divisions, etc. I mean, the personal aspect should not be left behind. It is exacerbating the social divisions that are being manifested all over the world as well. So I think the concerns shown by around 45% of cyber leaders is truly valid, especially in this day and age.
Stay online with us. The rapid adoption, Usman, of emerging technologies is contributing to new vulnerabilities and new threats. How can this rapid adoption cause these threats? What is the mechanism through which this happens?
Yes, precisely. Rapid adoption of technologies means that you don't necessarily have the social architecture, the right appropriate mindset for such things to be adopted, and therefore the science moves forward quickly, but the social science doesn't. That means having the sort of democratic processes in place, they can be undercut, having the requisite literacy levels, having all of those things in place to then let things seep in a gradual manner as ideas used to in, let's say, the Silk Road times. Though that's not happening now. They just pass this on, and if you immediately they shove it down upon you, and you simply aren't ready either psychologically for what is happening or in terms of your economy, how it has to shift. And a good example of that is how AI was thrust upon us in 2022, and we simply were in such a panic wondering whose jobs would survive and all, only to realize that actually it's basically trained on everything humans have already created. That's the claim that's now being made. And so now it isn't moving forward, it's just simply feeding off of its own garbage that it is recreating. That's just one example of that. So when you don't have the social science elements ready in a society, then having science elements move very, very quickly can cause very jarring consequences for everyone. And I think that's what they mean by important disruptions happening suddenly because of an innovation happening and we just not being ready for it.
All right. Talking of disruptions, let's talk about artificial intelligence. Saad, the report adds that 66% of organizations, because Usman has talked about it, I just wanted to continue on that thread. The report says 66% of organizations expect AI to have the most significant impact on cybersecurity in the years to come. 37% report having processes in place to assess the security of AI tools before they are deployed. Is AI, in your point of view, currently or maybe in the near future, going to be a risk factor as far as cybersecurity is concerned? Is it going to be a bane or a boon?
Yeah, it's a fair point, Omar. Like all good things, you have pros and cons, and especially for AI as well. Considering that it is the going mantra of the day for us and most of us around the world as well. Uh, it can easily be a bane or a boon. I mean, it is a double-edged sword in many ways. Either we live by it or we may die by it. Uh, when it comes to boon, perhaps there are many pros that it can actually bring. So, for example, the advancement in threat detection, so attacks that can be detected earlier and mitigated against. Then there are certain pieces of security operations that can be automated based on AI capability as well. And then data protection is one other piece that AI is leveraging well enough as well. So we have enhanced data protection methodologies that we follow as basis of AI-driven engines as well. And lastly, I think one of the things that it does better than perhaps humans is around predictive capabilities because it has so much data. that it can predict events mostly in advance as opposed to reacting to events as well. So in that particular instance, AI can actually act as a boon for not only individuals but organizations around the world as well. But remember, I said it's a double-edged sword. So with boon comes some bane as well. So with regards to AI, because the advancement is to such a great extent, we are seeing more and more AI-powered cyber attacks as well. It's examples in question all across the globe. Then there is AI-led cyber warfare, not only at an organizational level, Umar, but also at a state and nation level as well. And lastly, I think one of the biggest pieces that we can take negatively when it comes to AI is that the over reliance on AI in different systems across the world, most notedly in defense systems as well. So, for example, all the UAVs, etc., every piece of equipment is coming with AI embedded within those particular parameters. And then consequently, it is susceptible to much larger cyber attacks as before, as opposed to before. So I think in this particular way, the AI piece is a risk factor, but it can act both as boon and bane, not only for us, but I think the organizations worldwide.
But I think as time unravels, only then we'll see how much of a bane or a boon is it going to be, and also how the organizations deal with AI systems and AI-related systems. But that is a very long discussion, Saad. Coming to you, Usman, the report calls for a shift in perspective from cybersecurity to enhanced cyber resilience, the ability to mitigate the impact of significant cyber incidents on its goals as well as its objectives. How, in your point of view, can organizations move towards such a shift?
Well, it all is about the defense part of it. You need to have the right people in charge of cybersecurity. There is an acute talent shortage in cybersecurity around the world, not just in Pakistan. You also need to have the right policy framework in mind. And I want to mention something very positive. If you are aware of this URAN
Yes.
program, so one of the things, 5 pillars of it is the e-Pakistan. And in the e-Pakistan, when you look through it on page 34, you find that there is deliberate mention, after having talked about a techno-economy and a knowledge economy, about cybersecurity. And in that, the document mentions 2 things. One is collaborating with global stakeholders for cybersecurity. So you obviously leverage and you strengthen yourself by working with other technical expertise, and you try to mitigate this threat overall, as you would, for example, for chemical weapons or things like that. And the second is that you have to have that indigenous training mechanism. So we have a certain amount of strength in IT which needs to be scaled forward, scaled large. That also includes a cybersecurity expertise within IT to be scaled up large, because the value of protecting the assets will be far larger as they grow in value. Right now, a lot of the things that shape Web 2.0 are dispersed and small, but by the time we get to a Web 3.0, a new internet, we will be far more cautious about our identities online, how things are transacted, who is in charge of it, who owns the platforms. And there we can already see the shifts happening, for example, with the ban on TikTok that the US is doing. And all of these measures are being taken because this is an arena of geopolitics, but it's also an arena of economic work. And that's where resilience matters, because you have to be strong enough that any adverse consequences of any nefarious actor, large or small, can be withstood by the architecture as a whole.
All right. There are so many dimensions to cybersecurity, putting into place the geopolitical situation across the world, that it would, if you start to dig in, you find more and more dirt as much as you dig in. Saad, coming to you, we've talked about the socio-economic perspective of it all, so I won't ask you that question, but the report states that expanding regulatory demands, vulnerability in the interwoven supply chains, and a widening cyber skills gap are compounding these challenges that organizations face in staying secure. Are these challenges new? Usman has also pointed a little bit about the skill set that is lacking across the world, including in Pakistan. How, in your point of view, are they related to cybersecurity? And hasn't at least the global north or the west realized the importance of the skill set as far as cybersecurity is concerned?
Yeah,
Yes, Saad?
I think when it comes to challenges for cybersecurity, sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, I can. We can.
Oh, okay. So I was saying that when it comes to challenges for cybersecurity, Omar, I don't think they are new, but their scope and complexity and scale has increased over the last so many years. It started early days of computing in the 60s to 80s. Hackings and firewalls were still prevalent at that time. 90s came with the rise of the internet. If you remember, there was a Morris worm, which started, I think, in 1988. Then in the 2000s, we had pieces such as malware, viruses, denial of service attacks. And then penultimately, we had advanced threats that emerged in the 2010s in the form of ransomware, data breaches across the world as well. And last but not least, I mean, we are here in the 2020s, and it has evolved beyond ransomware, beyond data breaches, to critical infrastructure, as well as at a national and a state level as well, where we have cyber attacks which are tagged between nations rather than organizations. I think in that particular facet, the challenges that organizations will face will keep on compounding in the near future. And as Usman rightly pointed out, the cyber skills gap, which is not only prevalent in the developing world, but also in the developed world as well, is one particular piece that will probably hinder the response of this growing cybersecurity threat that will reach to its peak, I think, beyond 2020s as it is. And hence, I think a stock taking is needed in order to actually recalibrate the cyber skill gap that has been mentioned previously.
All right. There are so many dimensions that are pointed towards Usman when it comes to cybersecurity, AI, and geopolitics and affecting all of it. That it would take us maybe hours just to discuss the different manifestations of it all. But thank you so very much, Saad Masood, to have joined us and to have talked very ably about it. It's our first interaction, and I hope the first of many. Thank you very much. Coming to you, Usman. The report talks about the growing complexity of cyberspace. It talks about exacerbating cyber inequity, widening the gap between large and small organizations. It talks about deepening the divide between developed and emerging economies as well. Is cyber inequity, in your point of view, going to become a bigger challenge in the years to come? Also, will that contribute to inadequate cyber resilience in smaller organizations as well?
Absolutely, because there is this well-known concept of the digital divide, that there are certain countries that enjoy a very large advantage in the digital sphere. That means their influence in it, that means the computing power that they have, that means the technical expertise, as well as new technology. So many parts of it are controlled by only a select few. The rest of us are passive consumers on the other side of the digital divide. We have to use their platforms. Our interaction is shaped through their languages, through their programming languages, as well as the language they select to offer us. The content is monitored through their algorithms. This means that at best, your participation will be one of passivity, whereas they actively shape the dimensions of what happens. This will get worse with time because new technologies are also likely to strengthen their hand. For example, quantum computing and new strong computers can actually break the things we think are strong right now. For example, cryptocurrencies, the cryptography of that cannot be broken with modern day technology, but 10 years down the road, with enough strong quantum computing, you could actually break open Bitcoin and break. So all of the things that are being done right now, for example, in the US or in other countries to put money into crypto or to strengthen it, have a reserve, all of this will fall apart. And if you have that level of computing, you could actually break all cryptography. So this cat and mouse game will be exacerbated by the digital divide, because as spectators of this great power rivalry, we will be the most vulnerable, because as in the Cold War, it was the third world which was the battleground for the two superpowers.
So cyber inequity is going to be even more apparent in the years to come, especially between the developed and the developing nations, because they will be more equipped, we won't be.
That's
basically.
right. That's
All right.
right.
Thank you very much, Usman, to have joined us. It's a very long and cumbersome discussion, but I hope this will be for another time as well. Thank you very much, Usman Chohan, to have joined us. Please stay seated for a few more minutes till I end the show. Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns the death anniversary of Arfa Kareem, the 13th anniversary of whom is being observed across the world, including in Pakistan. She was the youngest Microsoft certified professional, and she became the youngest one by passing the MCP examination at the age of just 9 in the year 2004. Bill Gates invited her to visit the company's headquarters in the US when she was just 10. She won many awards, international recognitions for her brilliance in the world of IT. She sadly left us on the 14th of January 2012 at the age of 16. We remember her today. We'll continue to remember her for the genius that she was. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, Estonian slackline champion Jan Roos has completed a world first highline walk between the Jumeirah Emirates Towers in Dubai. This highline was 328 feet long and was suspended over 700 feet in the air. You can see the images in your parallel window. Three-time world champion Jan Roos achieved this world first highline walk. And of course, this feat marks the start of the third edition of the 1 billion followers summit, the world's largest event for the content creator economy. Speaking about the performance, Roos said that he still feels fear despite slackening for around 15 years. You know, you always face fear when you are at that height, even if you are experienced for decades. Well, all the best to him and congratulations to have achieved that feat. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news stories, segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.